Hey everybody, it's You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions. And my first question this week comes to me from Dangerously Talented, who says, after looking at presuppositionalist apologetics, I have found it wanting. I mean, all it is we must assume the Bible is true, so let's start our argument from there. I found that doing one simple video on it was enough for me. The mine is not all that deep. What do you think its strength is amongst the Christian community, and do you think that it will fall out of favor? I think it'll fall out of favor eventually, but I think it will always have its proponents. There will always be people to whom that argument is very attractive. It seems like it's the latest fad among the evangelical Christian community. I remember in the 90s, it seemed like the big thing was the Bible code. That's all you ever heard about among evangelicals. The Bible code, that's the evidence, that's the signature of God. And the Bible code has largely been forgotten, but there are still people who still talk about it and still consider it something. And I think the presuppositional argument will eventually sort of occupy that space. As an outsider, and I've talked about this with fellow atheists in my interview with Christopher Mauti on his Meeting of the Minds show on the New Covenant Group's channel. We talked about this a little bit. How, I mean, from an outsider, it's difficult for me to understand what is appealing about the argument. I don't see how it could ever be persuasive to people who are not already Christians themselves, evangelical Christians even. But from the inside, I can definitely imagine why it would be an appealing argument, because it's incredibly comforting to sort of grant yourself that allowance that you can't possibly be wrong. That's the real carrot of the presuppositional argument, is you approach someone with it who already believes in God and in the Bible and in Christ and all of it. They believe all of the basic stuff. They're already Christians. And they're already a particular type of Christian. They're probably biblical literalists, etc. And you say, do you know that there is an argument that says you cannot possibly be wrong about any of this stuff? That all of your beliefs must be true in order for reality to be comprehensible, in order for there to be such a thing as knowledge? You have to be right. There's no way you can possibly be wrong. And I can understand why that would be appealing to some people. James PFP, question: have you seen any of the fan-produced Star Trek series, most of which are being distributed on YouTube with far more success than any of the rebroadcasted series when it comes to the schools of lawyers looking for work? I digress. Such as Star Trek Phase 2, and if so, your thoughts? Corollary to it, fan films have been a part of online life for over a decade now. Do you anticipate a golden age of fan fiction to come? I have watched Star Trek Phase 2, actually, Star Trek New Voyages. I've seen all of their episodes. It's not bad for fan production. The main flaw in it is the acting, is the fact that most of the cast is made up of non-actors or very poor actors. But they've had scripts that have actually been written by writers from the original series. David Gerrold has written some episodes of their show. DC Fontana, I think, wrote an episode. So I mean, the writing is not bad. It's held back by the acting, and really the writing is the most important thing, because the writing, in terms of fan fiction, just in general, the writing is usually the weak point, because fan fiction, there's a fan fiction feeling, like it just feels nerdy. It feels like wish fulfillment. It feels like the writers are doing things with the characters that they've sort of always wanted to do, but it just doesn't feel right or true to the established characters. And you don't get as much of that in Star Trek New Voyages. It doesn't feel like just fan wish fulfillment. It feels like it's taken a bit more seriously than that, and they're a little more preoccupied with maintaining the aesthetic of the original series, which is the key to the whole thing. Some of the more recent episodes, or at least some of the previews I've seen of the more recent episodes, because they haven't released a new episode for a while, look like they're maybe veering a bit more into that fanficky sort of area. Like there's an episode coming up with Klingons where some of the Klingons are like the smooth-headed original series Klingons, and some of them have like the forehead ridges, like in the later movies and later TV shows. And I think that's a big mistake. I don't think they should ever depart from the established aesthetic of the original series. If you're going to do fan fiction set during Star Trek the original series, then the Klingons should look like they looked during the original series. No forehead ridges, no armor, no references to the later shows. It should be exactly what the original series was. That keeps it from feeling nerdy and feeling like fan fiction. And for the most part, they've been pretty good about that. Here's a question from Czar Robber Fly. What movie do you think did the most damage to modern day cinema, and why? The movie that did the most damage to modern day cinema is Star Wars. And it's not because Star Wars is a bad movie at all. Star Wars is a terrific movie. But the reason why it did the most damage to modern cinema is that Star Wars came at the end of the 1970s, and it showed the major Hollywood studios that the real money was in playing to the cheap seats. Because for all of its artistic value and for all of the things that make Star Wars a movie worth studying and worth watching and worth enjoying, it is also a rousing adventure that is sort of casts a wide net. It's very easy to enjoy Star Wars. It's not a terribly challenging movie. It's a fun adventure that lots of people of lots of different ages can watch and enjoy, and it attracts a big audience. It's a summer blockbuster, and the success of Star Wars is what finally sort of pushed the major American movie studios in the direction of, okay, we're just going to make movies like this. And the art films, the serious films, the Oscar contenders were sort of shuffled off to the side, and they release those at the end of the year so they can collect the awards and still have the prestige. But they know that the real money was going to come from the big blockbuster movies. And even though Star Wars is a really good movie, many of the films that have followed in the wake of Star Wars have not been good movies. Some of them have been. There have been lots of Hollywood blockbuster, big summer movies, tentpole movies that have been good movies. You know, that yes, they're pitched at a wide audience. They're there for commercial reasons to make a lot of money, but they've been good movies. You know, the Richard Donner Superman movie I would nominate as one of these. It was a big financial success, and it's a good movie. Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight movies. The same sort of thing. Critically very successful and made piles and piles of cash. The Avengers, another example. Critically very successful, financially incredibly successful. So there are exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, it's encouraged Hollywood to not care so much about content and quality and to care more about marketing and advertising and marketable properties and move away from the art of filmmaking. And the reason that I mentioned that it came at the end of the 70s is that the 70s were arguably the greatest decade for serious Hollywood movies. I mean, the great American films of the 70s, when you think about the great American films of the 70s, like The Godfather Part 2, The French Connection, all of these great movies that were American films from the 70s, almost all of them were Hollywood movies. They were not independent films or foreign films or anything like that. They were Hollywood movies. They were studio pictures. And they were just stunning. They were amazing. The 70s was such an incredible decade for the art of American cinema produced by Hollywood. And then Star Wars, unintentionally, I mean, I don't think George Lucas set out to destroy, serious Hollywood cinema, but that's what his movie did. He didn't mean for it to happen, but that's what happened. Star Wars broke. It was a huge success, and that's the direction that Hollywood went in from that point on. That's the direction we're still going. Now it's more superheroes than space opera, but it's the same sort of thing. It's the big commercial blockbuster movie. And okay, if you can make it a good movie, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. But the main concern is the marketing and the commercial appeal of it. And that's, I think, ultimately traceable back to Star Wars. And that makes Star Wars, even though it's a really great movie, the movie that has done the most damage to cinema. Isaac Barlow, if the Bible did not exist, do you think there would be still hatred and general disgust for the gay community? Thanks, you demand. Well, thank you, Isaac. I think we would be much further along than we are now. I don't think I can say there would be no such thing as anti-gay bigotry, because I don't think that originates with religion, but I do think that religion definitely encourages it and props it up. I think the elements of our society that do not take their cue so much from the Bible have largely evolved beyond that need to discriminate against gay people, or to look down on or mistreat gay people, or to feel like they're threatened in some way by giving gay people equal rights. The stragglers, by and large, are the fundamentalist religious folks, mostly Christians in the United States, but also, there's anti-gay feelings among fundamentalist Jews and Muslims as well. And yeah, I don't think that if we got rid of the Bible that it would completely go away, like the snap of a finger, like there would be no more homophobia, but we would be much, much further along, and we would have a much weaker force sort of holding us back from progress. Nuno1001, why is Batman Under the Red Hood shit? Yeah, last week in the lightning round I said that Batman Under the Red Hood was shit. And it is. And the reason I think that it is it's the same reason that I dislike most of those DC Universe animated direct-to-video movies. There are a few of them that I do like. I really liked the adaptation of New Frontier. I really liked the first one they did, the Superman Doomsday one. I thought that was pretty good. I thought Superman, Batman, Public Enemies was fun. But most of the rest of them I have not liked very much at all. And the main reason is that, well, for one thing, there's something about the way the DC animated producers handle their voice actors that just, the voice acting always seems very detached from the visual material. It seems like the actors are there just sort of reading their lines with a little bit of inflection, and they don't feel like they're giving a true performance. And you don't get the sense, at least I don't get the sense when I watch it, that I'm seeing a fully realized character on screen. And that's a problem for me. That separates me from the material. It keeps me from making a real emotional connection. The other thing is when they do adaptations of stories, like they did with Batman Year One, like they did for the most part with Under the Red Hood, which was also a comic book story, their adaptations are very, very literal. They add almost nothing from the source material, and that for me is a problem. If it plays more like a dramatization of the comic than a film, and that's I don't care for that. I would rather have a less literal interpretation of the source material that feels like a fully realized film. And the other thing is with Batman the Red Hood, I just don't think it's a very good story. I didn't like the comic book. I thought the original comic book story was terrible, and the animated film did not improve on it at all. So yeah, I mean, there are things to recommend about it. I like the character designs in it. I think Bruce Greenwood as Batman is a great idea if he were a little better directed to give a better performance. I think Neil Patrick Harris as Nightwing is a great idea, and I like the way Nightwing was animated in it to sort of bring in some of his circus background. You kind of tell with the body language that they gave Nightwing that they were referencing his acrobatic background. So there are things in it that I liked, that I noticed, but overall, yeah, it was shit, and it was shit for those reasons. Cassidy Robinson, hey Steve, I think I have asked this before, but I will give it another shot. What are your thoughts on progressive Christians? The liberal ones who aren't biblical literalists, but who still worship Christ and go to church every Sunday. Do you appreciate their progressiveness and take yes for an answer? Or do you find their clinging to religion, even when they can find falsity in it, to be weirdly desperate and insincere? Do you commend their nuance or shrug their lack of conviction? I am not usually an all or nothing type person, so I commend their nuance. I think it would be better for society as a whole if everybody stopped believing in superstition including gods, which are the most pernicious superstitions there are because they appeal to such deep desires and feelings in people, our desire to escape death, our desire to have purposeful, meaningful lives, our desire to know what is right and wrong, to know that we're on the right side, all these things that gods appeal to, all these very deep feelings, these deep emotions and yearnings that humans feel. It would be better if we would let those superstitions go completely. But it's still preferable to me that people who do hold religious beliefs and who don't want to relinquish their superstition completely, if they at least are able to hold a more reasonable version of that superstition, if they are tied to reality a bit more than a fundamentalist. I call them people who are making their faith better. I say this about Christians who reject the anti-gay parts of the Bible. I say they're making their religion better. People who reject creationism, who reject biblical literalism, who reject the anti-scientific elements of fundamentalism. I say they are making their faith better. And the people who focus on what they perceive as the message of Jesus of social justice and social progress and compassion and mercy and aid to the poor. I see them as taking the positive aspects of their faith as they can discover them and using that as motivation to do good. And I'm not going to complain about that. I think if you can take Christianity and take the good parts of it and use that as your faith and use that as a motivating factor to make the world a better place or to be a better person in your own private life, I'm certainly not going to complain about that at all. Do I think things would be better if we relinquished religious faith completely? Yes. But I am not going to complain about the liberal Christians, the progressive Christians, and progressive Jews and progressive Muslims, progressive people of any religious conviction who have found a way to use their faith in a positive way. I'm not going to complain about that. And I'm not going to complain about that either, because it signifies that it's time for my favorite part of the show. It's time for
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
Rational Mexican. Question for Steve. Do you still hold any views on any issue that may be considered conservative? Economics, death penalty, abortion, healthcare, anything? Not really. I'm pretty much a lefty the leftist these days. I don't have any really vestigial conservative beliefs. Gravel Studios. What do you think about the Verve Pipe's newer children's music? Great work, by the way. Thank you. I don't like the children's album. I think it's horrible. I think it's embarrassingly bad. It's shit. Louie Wallenberg. Steve, what is your favorite internet meme? I think my favorite is the Joseph DeCrue pictures, the archaic rap, where he's like, disregard women, acquire currency. I think those are my favorite. I've done a few of those on my Facebook wall, actually, if you want to check those out. Selena Salo. OMG, Buster Keaton. I love him. I like him more as an actor than a director, though. His facial expressions are amazing. What's your favorite Buster Keaton film? And if you have time, why? Mine is The General. Mine is Sherlock Jr. It's not only my favorite Keaton film, it's my favorite film, period. And I have a video all about it, and I'll put a link to it in the description box and in an annotation here on the video, so if you want to check it out. I have a whole video about why I think Sherlock Jr. is such an awesome movie. Bill F. 1967. Pick one, F. Scott Fitzgerald or William Faulkner. F. Scott Fitzgerald. Jim Smith, since we are both Kubrick fans, what are your top 5 Kubrick films? Okay, let's see. In ascending order. Okay. Eyes Wide Shut, A Clockwork Orange, Dr. Strangelove, Paths of Glory, 2001. From 5 to 1. Shoes on Hands. Steve, I know that it is a ton of work to do, but will you make another fluffy video soon? I find them brilliant. I assume you mean stuffy video. And yes, I will. After the current series of An Atheist Reads is over, I'm going to be putting up stuffy videos every Thursday for the rest of the year, for like the final 8-10 weeks of the year, however long there is. There are going to be more stuffy videos. And I love the stuffy videos too. I'm glad you like them. Lax Paint. Question, do you think video games make people violent? No, I do not. Practical Magic 9. How many pets have you owned over your life? Well, not counting fish and hermit crabs, I've actually only owned 2. I had a dog, a black lab, that I owned from when I was about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old up until I was 20 or 21. She lived a nice long life and died of natural causes. And then I have my kitty, Oddykins, who is laying down right off camera. You just barely can't see her. She's only the second pet that I've ever actually owned in my life. So but I mean, how many do you really need? Truck Company. You are trapped in a desert island with a Bible. How long before you use it as toilet paper? Do you hate Brannon Braga as much as me? The episode Genesis has the worst creationist-like science in history. Well, to answer the second question first, I don't know if I hate Brannon Braga as much as you, but I do think he's done some pretty shitty things. But then again, he also co-wrote Star Trek First Contact, so you can't completely shit on the guy. And as for the first question, how long before I use the Bible as toilet paper, that depends. When's the last time I ate? Let's do a shout out. The shout out this week goes to Michael Sherlock. His YouTube handle is Mike Sherlock 100. He has a really fun series. It's a really great idea, just in terms of just the visual of it. It's called Let's Tear Up the Bible, and he has another version for the Quran, Let's Tear Up the Quran, where he opens the Bible and he picks out the passages of the Bible where God either is commanding the people of Israel to do some horrible evil, or he is at least like tolerating some horrible evil like rape or slavery or war or something like that. And he reads the passages where God, commands this or expresses some sort of approval or tolerance of it, and then he just rips it right out of the Bible. He makes the Bible better. Talking earlier about Christians who make their religion better. Mike Sherlock is improving the Bible with every one of those videos because he finds the horrible, evil stuff that God does or tells other people to do or tolerates, and he just rips it right out. You see how easy the Bible can be improved just by ripping out all the evil shit? And that's what Mike Sherlock does. And it's a service. It's a great service, and it's a wonderful way of illustrating all of the really morally monstrous stuff that is in the Bible that we have to accept if we are meant to take it as the Word of God. So Mike Sherlock, check out his channel. It's a really interesting video series, and he's written 3 books as well. I'm pretty sure they're self-published. I haven't read any of them, but 3 books dissecting, sort of deconstructing Christianity. The series is called I Am Christ, and maybe that's worth a look for you too if you're interested. So Mike Sherlock, check him out, give his work a look, and if you feel like it's your type of thing, then give him a subscription, because I think that he's worth keeping track of. So that's it for this week. I will be back again next week to do this, assuming, of course, that you ask me some questions, because for me to do this, you have to ask. So please leave a comment on this video. Ask me your question. Ask me anything about anything. Nothing is too silly. Nothing is too serious. And I will try to answer as many of them as I can next week. And I will see you guys then.